Now joining us on Africa Tonight to discuss this issue further and analyze the implications of what has been developing in Zimbabwe with regards to politics is Honorable Themba Mliswa. He's a Member of Parliament for Northern Constituency in Zimbabwe. We also have Tino Mambeu from Tajamuka. He is a spokesperson for that organization. You're at home. Welcome to joining the conversation. Our Twitter handle is @ANN7TV. You can use the hashtag Africa Tonight. Gentlemen, welcome to Africa Tonight.
Thank you very much, Audrey.
I'll start with you, Honorable Mliswa. What do we make of the statement that came from General Constantine Chiwenga? A lot of people saying it doesn't have the gravity that it should have. If they really wanted to act, as the military, they could have done that. Was that a lame warning to President Robert Mugabe?
I think it is within their constitutional mandate. I think the section of the Constitution 212 is very clear in terms of the functions of the defense forces, in that they should protect the people of Zimbabwe, they should protect its national security and the interests. And this is about national security and interest, and anything that hinders and tries to also create an insecurity within the country. They have a right to do that. The First Lady has been usurping powers from the president. She's not been elected to be the president, and it starts from there. And the Commander Defense Forces, together with other commanders, are very much within their right to do that. They must protect the people of Zimbabwean interests. Zimbabwe has got founding principles of the liberation struggle, which must be respected regardless of who it is and so forth. And if those who brought about the thing struggle are failing to uphold that, I think there must be a message to them and allow a certain generation to come in while the army restores that dignity and the values of the struggle.
Tino, Majamukaere, Kanaguti, what is going on? There's a lot of fear-mongering that's happening. We've seen a lot of pictures on Twitter, on social media, of military vehicles, in the streets of Harare. What is going on there? Is there a military intervention of some sort that we're not aware of? Has it been defined why we're seeing all these military vehicles on the streets of Harare?
Well, thank you very much once again for having me here. But the bottom line is, before we can jump into what we are talking about, which is the subject of the day, Tajamuka has always said that Mugabe must go. This is the message that we put out since our inception. And we think that he must go, and we still say that he must go. Now, coming to the developments that are taking place at the moment in Zimbabwe, we feel that everybody that supports our notion that Mugabe must go is welcome on board. And we do as much as we can to make sure that we would want sanity to prevail. And what we have seen on social media is it is a sign of the displeasure that has arisen as a result of the misgovernance by President Mugabe. The statement that was put out by Comrade Chiwenga yesterday, I think is unequivocally clear as to where is the direction this thing is taking. So we expect to see more of that in the streets. And we also, as Zimbabweans, we have got a mandate to make sure that we support and we raise our voices in a way that avoids the end result. Because at the end of the day, what Mugabe is trying to do is to bring in grace by the back door and continue in a dynasty. So we feel, as the people of Zimbabwe, that we cannot have that situation unfolding. And whatever support or whatever mechanism that will make sure that there is no dynasty in Zimbabwe, I think it deserves the support of the majority of Zimbabweans.
Honorable Mliswa, it has been widely reported that the former vice president, who was axed, Mnangagwa, enjoys the support of the military, enjoys the support of the intelligence in Zimbabwe. Do you think what we saw happening yesterday with the General Chiwenga, his statement, the press briefing that he gave, and the military action that we saw in the streets of Harare today has anything to do with that?
Listen, you cannot continue paging your lieutenants. The first person to be paged was former Honorable Vice President Joyce Mujuru, together with myself, known as the Mujuru Cabal, to remove the president. Then they went on to purge more people. Then they started purging people so-called aligned to Mnangagwa. the Lacoste faction, where even the chairperson of the war veterans, Chris Mtwangwa, was suspended, expelled from the party, and other war veterans who really what the party is. ZANU-PF cannot be divorced from the military and the war veterans. It is important for people to understand that. That is the reason why there is an allegation that in 2008, Tsvangirai won, but the military stepped in to then protect the president. When they stepped in at the time, ZANU-PF was not at pains. And unfortunately, right now, they seem to be at pains in seeing the military stepping in. It is a revolutionary party. As such, these people remain the comrades who brought about the struggle and so forth. From a constitutional point of view, as much as I agree with Tino about the president stepping down, we must also practice constitutionalism at the end of the day. He is an elected president. At the same time, the aspect of national security is critical. When a government is in power, it has a mandate to deliver its manifesto, the policies that it comes up with. The Zimbabwe economic blueprint is Zimasat. We've not heard about it. We've had more of factions being talked about, which then compromises the welfare of the people in the country. If any nation's economic turnaround is not happening in the expected time as promised, there's likely to be a security threat. As such, Constantine Chiwenga is very right in saying that there's instability in ZANU-PF, which is failing to address the economic challenges the people are facing. As a military, we shall not watch, we shall step in and we shall tell ZANU-PF to put its house in order. Rightfully, within his right, he's done the right thing.
I want us to talk about how the ZANU-PF Youth League has come out in support of Vice President Grace Mugabe. They actually came up, I think, with a statement today, a press conference, denouncing what Chiwenga said in his press conference yesterday. We'll come back to that. I just want to welcome to the conversation Democracy Restoration Party President, Mr. Brian Muvumbi. Welcome to Africa Tonight.
Welcome, and welcome to your viewers.
What are your thoughts with what's happening, the developments in Zimbabwe politically as the opposition? I understand there's a coalition that has been trying to happen with opposition parties. How do you think that the dynamics of what's happening now affect your plans going forward as we obviously approach the 2018 elections, if at all?
I would like to say our plans to revolve into something normal as a nation is not starting now. These are just a manifestation of accumulation of problems that have been accumulating since day one we got our independence in 1980. Let me slowly take you back. In 1982-83, we had a problem of Gukurahundi. Robert Mugabe, as the president, had only 3 years in office. So that's when the problem started. But they've been accumulating over time. So right now, we can't say what is happening now is a result of things that happened 2 weeks ago, or a month, or a year. But what I can simply tell you, it's been an accumulating problem. And we have reached now at a juncture where decisions has to be made by the ruling party, by the government, and the electorate. And unfortunately, as myself, the person of Brian Muvumbi, I can only speak of my party. We, as the Democracy Restoration Party, we have realized that before we are any political party, we are Zimbabweans first. So at this moment, with these new developments that is taking center stage in our politics, we would like the world in Africa to know that unity is imperative right now.
Well, but where are you coming from as a new political party? I mean, we've never really heard of, RDP, is it RPP?
It's DRP.
DRP. You're coming into the picture now. What does your manifesto say? What are you offering to Zimbabweans, if not dividing, the electorate and their vote already?
We have been introspecting the politics of Zimbabwe for the past 6-7 years. And we, as the Democracy Restoration Party, let me also pose a simple question to you. There are so many big political parties with big names. You name it MDC, you name it ZIPP, you name it ZANU-PF. The big question is, in their enormity, what has it come to be? This is why the people must now decide to look for the new avenue. And the new avenue, which is the third force, is DRP. We are now here ushering a new dispensation of politics in our country. We are saying we don't have to politic because we realize there are others amongst us in our country that are trapped in Zimbabwe that cannot get out of Zimbabwe. I must also tell you in that line that even acquiring a passport it's a very difficult, almost an impossible process, especially if you don't bribe. There are people amongst us who are suffering from chronic disease such as AIDS, cancer, tuberculosis, and so on. Politicians have been coming and going. It's probably a new face, and it's ironic. It's in such a time that people would want to look for a leader, and my face is coming as a new face. But it should be understood, even by the powers that be. Leaders come from the ground. We are here to stay. Our party, DRP, will not leave a stone unturned in pursuit of democracy. We are not here to try anything that has been tried. First and foremost, we are going to call for total unity of the peoples of Zimbabwe. We have the blueprints of what it takes to be there.
Okay. Tino, what do you make of these new political parties that we're hearing of? I mean, as you know, there has been a call for Zimbabweans to register to vote. Yeah, we've seen ZANU-PF trying to mobilize people. We've seen the rallies that President Robert Mugabe and his wife have been attending. Not so much of the opposition that claims to really want to give it a try going forward in the elections.
Well, firstly, I think we should notice that the coming in of these various parties, as he is alluding to, it has happened as a result of lack of direction and lack of and voter apathy, kind of. So you will remember that we had a very strong opposition in the name of MDCT, fair and fine, but because we have tried to go into elections and elections have become rigged ultimately, people are now beginning to feel that even if we go to elections, we do not have what we want. So the coming in of various political leaders is a result of disappointment and lack of direction. What is actually happening now in Zimbabwe is where people have reached a stage where they do not know what to do. So each and everybody feels that things are not happening, they form a political party. But let's go to what Tajamuka believes in terms of what is happening in Zimbabwe. We have said it before that Mugabe must step down, but do we have any option? So what we think must happen right now is that when Mugabe steps down, whichever way, because he's frail, he's old, he moves around with a catheter, he has actually lost his mental faculties. He cannot control his body. That is the reason why he has got a catheter on him. So we cannot have that man as a leader. So what we actually need right now is not elections. Elections are not going to solve Zimbabwe's problems. We have tried elections several times from 1980 and nothing has come out of it. What we need now is a government of national unity, or a transitional authority that takes into account the responsibility of leveling the playing field politically. Once we have got reforms, then we can go into elections. I do not believe right now that the Zimbabwean population must be frog-marched into elections that will cause more and more harm. What we need, we really understand that we have got the resources, we have got the technical ability. We need all leaders to come together and say, let's have a transitional authority that resets Zimbabwe. I will tell you now that whenever you mention the name Zimbabwe to anybody, what comes into mind is deprivation, corruption, lack, fear, and all sorts of things. That is what Mugabe has managed to do with the name Zimbabwe. So it has actually gained a new definition, which is what we want to reset. We need a clean start, but we cannot do that through elections. We are not ready to go that route. We need to sit down and
are you in
talk.
agreement? Are we ready for elections? Is there a point in doing that? Also, with the recent political developments, how does this affect Zimbabwe as they go into elections 2018? Of course, the axing of Vice President Mnangagwa.
Now, first of all, let's agree on one thing. We've got to practice constitutionalism, how you expect people to be in power without following the constitution and going to the ballot is another thing altogether. I am a legislator. I have to protect the constitution. I've taken oath on that. And what I believe the political parties must be doing is taking advantage of the failures of ZANU-PF, taking it to the people and so forth. The political parties must understand that the strength of ZANU-PF is in the rural areas. There's voter registration going on right now through the BVR. Not many youth are registering. There's more women on that. So if you believe that you're just going to wake up one day and think to be in power, it's going to be difficult. The opposition alliance which is there, which is led by Triangular, is there in place, and as such, they must be able to tell each other where they're going to stand, how they're going to get the votes. You've got to understand that ZANU-PF is a machinery. It is the government of the day. It is state apparatus. So when you're fighting them, you've got to be cognizant of that fact. Equally, the purging of Honorable Mnangagwa and other members certainly is a plus for the opposition. How they're going to have alliances with other members in ZANU-PF who disgruntled, it's up to their strategy and so forth. But the opposition opposition too has got a tendency of accusing us of still being ZANU-PF, of being CIO agents and so forth. Yet they have failed to penetrate the ZANU-PF strongholds. And when we penetrate, I won in Norton because of the coalition, because of the support of everybody wanting change. That can still be replicated in Zimbabwe, but knowing exactly who's who.
Yeah, but are we going to have elections at all? I mean, there's all this talk of a possible coup in Zimbabwe right now as we speak. I mean, is that sensationalizing what is happening in Zimbabwe, or is that a real fear that
no,
people
there's
need
no
to
coup. There will never be a coup in Zimbabwe. The security are within their rights to do what they've done, because there's a security threat in that the First Lady has usurped powers. In doing that, the president is not doing his mandate as enshrined in the Constitution, as he was elected by the people, to ensure that he governs the country. Zimbabwe is ungovernable at the present moment. Professor Moyo seems to be the person again who's advising him. You could see that the Prosecutor General was fired because he has a case against Professor Moyo in terms of the ZimDef money that has gone missing in terms of corruption. The president has failed to zero in on what he said.
So is the indirect violation of the Constitution by allowing someone to usurp his powers?
We are definitely moving a motion in Parliament under Section 97 to impeach the president, and I'm hoping that the Speaker will hear that this statement by the Defense Forces calls upon Parliament to exercise its rights and to protect the people of Zimbabwe by impeaching the president because of misconduct, because the president is failing to uphold the Constitution, and as far as we know, he is not the person who's calling the shots at the end of the day. Chipanga's statement is a non-event. These are young boys who ultimately want to be seen to be patronizing the president. They are part of the cheer, the thing choir that is led by the chair lady and so forth. So that is a non-event. Zimbabwe has got more youths than what ZANU-PF has got. The ZANU-PF does not control all the youths. They must understand that. Yeah. We've got, demographically, we've got 60% of the youths who are in the country, and ZANU-PF probably controls 10%. Seeing people at interfaces does not turn out to be people who vote.
Right.
People are known to attend ZANU-PF dues because of freebies. As a result, that does not translate into voting. We've got to understand that in Norton it happened. They were issuing stands, they were issuing maize, they were giving...
So they're buying votes. Does it translate to votes, all these freebies that you're speaking of? I just want to hear quickly from Mr. Mvumbi. Yes. As the opposition, are you taking advantage of the crisis that ZANU-PF is going through right now? Do you think you're doing enough, everything that you can as the opposition to do that?
I think in our own nature as the DRP, we are doing what is enough. But what I would like to say is, you see, to have a problem is another thing, and to have a solution is yet another thing. The problem that we have currently in Zimbabwe is that we have rolled back to where we were before our independence in 1980. The president who was there before Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, his name was Ian Smith. Yeah, Ian Douglas Smith. He didn't say people should not vote, the people of color. Ian Smith said you can vote. But our Land Act, entails that you must have title deeds in the capital, within Salisbury. Knowing very well the people of color didn't constitute in number the people who had title deeds. So in other words, he was not adhering to the universal suffrage, the right for everyone to vote. Now Mugabe is doing exactly that by introducing systems that are actually very complicated. For example, the BVR system, the biometric voter registration system that they've introduced. It's fraudulent in the sense that our constitution, I think it's section 52, demands simplicity. It has to be simple.
So what makes you relevant as DRP to the electorate in Zimbabwe right now, just very quickly?
Right. We are the party that is showing the light. Because you can understand all the opposition parties have come under NERA and subsequently under MDC Alliance. And all they are telling the people, go and register to vote. We are not saying so. If you go on www.zimdrp.org, there is a petition, 10-point petition, which is the solution. We are saying no to elections. We don't want Mugabe to participate on the virtue of his being not well, because the Constitution says so. If the president is not well, he had an interview with the Dalitambo, where he said even his eyes is a problem. He's got cataract. And the constitution said you should back off. So we are saying you should not participate. So people should not go and register to vote. Rather, there are 10 points that the government of Zimbabwe must adhere to. We are not threatening to take the government by force.
Mr. Muvumbi, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for those final remarks. A huge thank you to all my guests for coming on to Africa Tonight. I'm sure we'll have these conversations, of course, as you know, the stories in Zimbabwe, the politics develops. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. I just want to thank a very quick thank you to Norton Member of Parliament, Honourable Themba Mliswa. We also had Tino Mambeu, Tajamuka spokesperson, and Democracy Restoration Party President, Mr. Brian Muvumbi. You're at home for taking part in the conversation as well.